A couple of years ago, when I was 22, I was working as a waitress. The place I worked at was this cute little restaurant not too far from my apartment, just a quick 15-minute drive. We'd usually close up around 10 p.m, and by that time the streets were pretty quiet, making my drive home peaceful. My boyfriend, bless him, started picking me up from work every evening. It was our little routine, and knowing he was there waiting for me always made the closing shift a bit easier. Then this guy started coming into the restaurant. He was in his 40s, always looking a bit rough around the edges. Something about him made my skin crawl right from the start. He didn't do much at first, just sat there, ordered a ton of food, and watched me. I tried to keep my distance, only approaching his table when I absolutely had to. One night, he ordered more food than anyone could eat alone and then just vanished before paying. It was weird, but I tried to brush it off. However, after that, he stopped coming in as a customer. I should have felt relieved, but I didn't. It felt like he was still around, lurking. A few nights later, my feeling turned out to be right. I was walking out to the parking lot after my shift, and there he was, standing in the shadows like some sort of predator. I froze, heart hammering in my chest. The parking lot felt a million miles wide as I tried to figure out what to do. Just then, my boyfriend's car pulled up. He must have seen the panic on my face because he was out of the car in a second, looking ready to defend me. The creepy guy backed off and disappeared into the night as quickly as he had appeared. We reported the incident to the police, but without much to go on, it felt like we were just speaking into the void. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. A few days later, as I was closing up, I saw him again. This time he tried to get into the restaurant after I had locked up. I backed away from the door, my heart racing. It was like a scene from a horror movie, with him on the other side of the glass, trying to get in. I've never felt more trapped. The restaurant had always been a place where I felt safe, even happy. But in that moment, it felt like a cage. My boyfriend, once again, came to my rescue. He arrived just in time to see the guy running off. After that, I couldn't bear the thought of going back. I quit my job at the restaurant. It was a hard decision. I liked my co-workers, and the regulars had become like friends. But the fear of running into that guy again overshadowed everything else. Leaving the job helped, but it took a long time for me to feel normal again. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, jumping at shadows. My boyfriend was a huge support during that time, always there to reassure me and make me feel safe.
After working late into the evening, my stomach was growling louder than the hum of my old car's engine. I decided to stop by this new restaurant that had opened up in my area. The place had a cozy vibe, dim lighting, and a warm welcome that immediately eased the stress off my shoulders. I ordered their special for the night, which, to my surprise, turned out to be one of the best meals I'd ever had. The flavors were just right, leaving me thoroughly impressed. I left a generous tip, complimented the chef, and made my way out, already planning my next visit. The night had crept in, casting long shadows across the nearly empty parking lot. A chill ran down my spine, not from the cold, but from a sudden uneasy feeling. I shrugged it off as I approached my car, only to stop dead in my tracks. The driver's side window was shattered, glass sparkling like sinister stars against the dark pavement. My heart sank. Not again. Last year, I had a similar unfortunate experience when someone broke into my car, stealing my laptop and a few other valuables. Since then, I've made it a point not to leave anything of importance in my car. Tonight, all I had was a backpack filled with my gym clothes in the back seat. Or, well, it was supposed to be. The backpack was gone. Cursing under my breath, I got into the car, the cold air biting at my skin through the broken window. I decided to head straight to the police station. As I pulled onto the road, my mind raced with frustration. How could I have let this happen again? But before I could berate myself any further, I felt it. An ice-cold grip tightening around my neck. Panic surged through my veins as I slammed the brakes, the car screeching to a halt. Adrenaline kicked in, and I fought back blindly, throwing punches and elbowing behind me. The grip around my neck loosened, and seizing the moment, I flung the car door open and bolted out. My attacker was quick to follow, emerging from the back seat with a swift, menacing grace. My heart pounded against my chest, every instinct screaming at me to run, but anger rooted me to the spot. I was ready to confront him, to take back what was mine, when I saw the glint of a knife in his hand. Every fiber of my being yelled, "Danger!" And I stumbled backward, my resolve dissolving into fear. The man took a step towards me, but the sight of headlights from an approaching car seemed to spook him. He darted a look between me and the oncoming vehicle before turning on his heel and disappearing into the night. Shaken, I made my way to the police station, the events of the night replaying in my mind like a nightmarish loop. I reported the incident, describing the attacker as best as I could through my rattled state. The officers were sympathetic, taking down my statement and assuring me they'd do their best to catch the culprit. The drive home was a blur. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound made me jump. I couldn't shake off the feeling of vulnerability, of how quickly safety can be snatched away.
My name is Anna. I'm 21 years old, and I've been navigating life with a mix of optimism and caution. I grew up in a small town where everyone knows everyone, which can be comforting but also suffocating. I moved to the city a few years ago for college and decided to stay, craving the anonymity and opportunities it offered. Currently, I'm working as a waitress at a quaint diner downtown, known for its cozy ambience and hearty meals. It's not my dream job, but it pays the bills and gives me a chance to meet a plethora of interesting people. Well, mostly interesting until one day. A few months into my job at a strange visitor started coming in. He was an unassuming man, probably in his late 30s, always wearing a nondescript jacket and a hat that shadowed his eyes. At first, he just sat in my section, sipping his coffee slowly, his gaze lingering on me longer than felt comfortable. He rarely spoke except to place his order, and even then, his voice was soft, almost a whisper. After a few visits, he started trying to engage me in conversation, asking how my day was going or commenting on the weather. It was innocent enough, but there was an intensity to his attention that made me uneasy. One day, as I was clearing his table, he asked me out, suggesting we could grab dinner sometime. He didn't seem particularly unattractive, but something in my gut screamed that something was off, so I politely declined, citing a busy schedule. That, however, didn't deter him. He continued to visit, always during my shift, always trying to make conversation and intermittently asking me out. His behavior started to escalate. He began inquiring about me with my co-workers, trying to find out more about my life outside the diner. Then, one day, I saw him near my apartment. He greeted me warmly, complimenting my dress, as if it was the most natural thing to run into me there. But his presence, so far from the diner, sent a shiver down my spine. After that, I started noticing him everywhere. At the grocery store, near my gym, even at the local library I frequented. It became clear he was watching me, his behavior growing increasingly intrusive and persistent. I started to feel like a prisoner in my own life, constantly looking over my shoulder, jumping at shadows. I told my manager about the situation, and she was sympathetic, offering to talk to him or even ban him from the diner, but I feared that might provoke him further. Then, one evening, the situation escalated severely. I was walking to my car after a late shift, the parking lot dimly lit and nearly empty. As I approached my car, I felt the sudden grip of his hand on my arm, stronger and more forceful than before. I spun around to face him, heart pounding. His eyes bore into mine with an intensity that froze me in place. "Anna, why won't you give me a chance?" he demanded. His voice no longer soft but sharp and menacing. I tried to pull away, but his grip only tightened, causing pain to shoot up my arm. "Please let me go! You're hurting me," I pleaded, panic rising in my voice. For a moment he seemed to consider, his gaze softening, but then he pulled me closer, his other hand reaching for me. In a moment of sheer desperation, I kicked him hard, catching him off guard and loosening his grip just enough for me to break free. I ran to my car, locked the doors immediately, and drove off as fast as I could, not once looking back. When I got home, I locked the door and slid down against it, allowing myself to break down. The next day, I filed a report with the police, explaining everything from the beginning. They took it seriously, promising to look into it. I also decided to take some time off work and stay with a friend in another part of the city, hoping distance would give me some safety and peace of mind. The police eventually caught up with him. It turned out he had a history of stalking, though he'd never been violent before. They issued a restraining order, ensuring he couldn't come near me again.